like it's something non-spiritual or something. But to me, Halloween is a great opportunity to face your fears and laugh at them and have fun with them. So do like we do every Halloween. Dig out those scary old DVDs, you know, all the classics. Bela Lugosi and Dracula, right? Boris Karloff and Frankenstein. Or what was the one with Mel Brooks? Young Frankenstein. That's even better, isn't it? And laugh. And don't forget Vincent Price and his many roles. Jump, scream, laugh. Why squirm? We know our union with God. What is there to fear? So we approach it from a place of power. And that's what we have to do with our fears. Approach them from a place of power. So I'm going to say 1, 2, 3. And when I get to 3, I want you all to go, boo. 1, 2, 3. Boo. Ooh, yeah, isn't that fun? Laugh, laugh. Laugh at your fears. It's kind of like growing old. There's an old saying, you know, when you're getting old because the clothes you used to wear are now Halloween costumes. More truth than humor in that one, I'm afraid. Remember the 60s, the bell-bottoms and the paisleys? We can look back at those photographs and laugh, laugh. You know, I love when the Course in Miracles explains the origin of fear. Fear started, according to the Course, it all began one day when someone forgot to laugh. Isn't that the best definition of when fear started? Somebody forgot to laugh. And the Course goes on to say, when you saw yourself as separate and alone, you couldn't help but suffer fear and loneliness and all the ills that come from the base emotion of fear. Fear is degenerating. Nothing about fear is life-giving. You thus were given life only to have it become degenerated by fear. When somebody said boo and nobody laughed. So let's practice. Why do mummies have no friends? They're too wrapped up in themselves. You can boo too, that's all right. I got 2 more that are just as bad. Why don't ghosts like rain on Halloween? It dampens their spirit. What do you get if you cross? Okay, this is my favorite though. What do you get if you cross a vampire with a teacher? A lot of blood tests. You know, and it's spiritual. Even the Bible is full of Halloween stories. Did you know that? If you've really read your Bible, you had to have seen some Halloween stories. Everything from the scary to the paranormal. There's a witch in the Bible. If you remember the first year I was here on Halloween, I preached on the witch of Endor. Now she was called a witch because in the Bible, if you were a man, you were called a prophet, and if you were a woman, you were called a witch. You gotta laugh, right? You gotta laugh at that. There are UFOs in the Bible. The prophet Elijah was taken up in a chariot of fire. My goodness. There were magicians. In the Old Testament, they were turning staffs into snakes, and then they would take the snakes and turn them into staffs. Abracadabra. And I kid you not, look it up in Numbers 22:28. There is a talking donkey. I kid you not, a talking donkey. This is all in the Bible. It's filled with rivers turning red with blood and beings from another world. Jesus was reading people's minds. And the first zombie is in the Bible. Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead. Come on, people. You gotta laugh. It's there. But my favorite Halloween story in the Bible is David and the Goliath. There was a land of giants. Sounds like a sci-fi movie, doesn't it? The land of giants. And historically, the Philistines were a race of big people. And just a little sideline, because I always love a good conspiracy theory, but there's actually archaeological proof of a giant race of beings all over the world. Even in America, there were skeletons found, and unfortunately the Smithsonian even destroyed them because it went against their fundamentalist beliefs. You know, come on, people, you gotta laugh at this. Metaphysically, what do these giants mean? You know, when we interpret the Bible, we look at every person, place, and thing as an aspect of our consciousness. So what are the giants in our consciousness? Well, I don't know about you, but anybody here ever make a mountain out of a molehill? Oops, all together now. Oops. And when we take our thoughts and fears and we keep making them bigger and bigger, they paralyze us. And we're not able to do anything. We're paralyzed. So the wonderful story of David and Goliath. Here's this big giant representing our big fear that is paralyzing, that has grown to gigantic proportions. And young David slays him with a little stone and his slingshot. I always like to think God made me short so I wouldn't intimidate anybody up here. No. Metaphysically, let's interpret this just briefly. Goliath had a spear and a suit of armor, and they represent those weapons, those things in the outer that we use to try to counteract our fear, and the material protection that we try to use. Where David represents the aspect in us that knows our union with divine love, that we are divine love in our highest divine nature. And that comes from a place of power. Now we can approach life from a place of power. So he throws this stone, which represents metaphysically, this stone of truth right in the forehead, right in his mind, and that's what prayer does. We put prayerful thoughts in our mind to lift them up above the fear, to bring truth to our fears, and make those giant fears go away. So this week, Halloween week especially, let's all use prayer and keep putting those thoughts in our mind with the place of power. We have to deal with our fears. We can't ignore them. We have to deal with them and rise above them. I love the author, Adyashanti, who once said, stop avoiding things. If there's anything unresolved in yourself, turn toward it. Not away from it, face it, look at it. Stop using a moment of awakening as a means to not deal with something that may be less awake within you. So what an opportunity we have this week to face our fears, our insecurities, our weaknesses, and laugh from a place of power. People love to get into fear, and my goodness, it's out there again. I was just talking to a friend from out of state, so I can talk about her, because she's from out of state. We were on Facebook, and she started getting into this litany of fear she has right now. And it reminded me, remember the Y2 scare back in the year 2000? When it was called The Day the Earth Will Stand Still, like another sci-fi movie. And they predicted all the banks would fail, the food supplies would be depleted, electricity would be cut off, the stock market would crash, the vehicles using computer chips would stop dead, telephones would cease to function. That all sounds kind of good on some level. And on and on and on I went. And this is how my friend was talking this week. She said, oh my goodness, there's shortages already. People can't get things. I've started to stock up. My God, next thing she'll be getting a gun, Stop. Don't make a giant out of a molehill. Go back to your place of power. Where's your place of power? Knowing your union with the divine. And fear robs us of that power. In unity, we have two ways to deal with those fears. The metaphysical way, speaking words of truth. Sending that slingshot out with those stones of truth that get us right in the head, where we transform our state of consciousness to a higher place. And then there's the mystical way. Like David, be like David. He knew his union with divine love, and he stood, this little guy, from a place of power, and he slung that truth at the giant. Love must have the assurance of truth, and must be sent forth with confidence, courage, and power in both thought and word. Wow. Huh? And then we replace the fear. We just accept what is. Okay, Things right now aren't maybe the way we want it in the world, but we don't entrust our union with the divine, and we rise above it and allow the expansion of our unfolding consciousness. That's where it gets beautiful. The more higher above we get from this worldly appearances, the more our consciousness can expand. But fear binds us to the lower levels of negativity and that low energy on this earth plane. And we have to take a rocket and rise above it. Just like William Shatner. Can you know, alias Captain Kirk. William Shatner, age 90, he put himself on a spaceship and went up there. You gotta admire the guy. I know he's probably got an ego as big as this room, but whether you like the guy or not, my God, at age 90, you gotta respect that. That he went up into outer space. And I was curious, I was watching a YouTube of how he described what was that like. I thought, I gotta know how Captain Kirk really feels when he goes up there, Anyway, he was sharing how that feeling, when the rocket goes up and all that jet propulsion and the noise was overwhelming. He said you wouldn't believe the noise and the force, and just going up and up and up. And then all of a sudden it breaks through gravity and everything becomes quiet and they're floating and it's peaceful and it's beyond anything he'd ever experienced. And I thought, wow, that's what we have to do down here, because we keep being pulled down by the news media, by the fear, by the negativity, by the division in this world. It's like a gravity that pulls us down. But we can be like that rocket ship, standing in our center of truth and using prayer as the propulsion to take us higher and higher above it. And then the more we practice it, the higher we get, and all of a sudden, we're above it all. We know our union. We're living in grace. And we're safe and at peace and in that place of power. That author, Adi Ashanti, said, a rocket ship takes a tremendous amount of thrust and a tremendous amount of energy to get off the ground and then to break the gravitational field as it travels through the sky and ultimately into space. If there's enough fuel in the rocket and it gets far enough away from the Earth, it can eventually get beyond the gravitational field of the planet. And once the rocket is beyond the Earth's gravitational field, the Earth no longer has the power to pull us back. And that's why we come to church every Sunday, to be refueled with the power of truth and to reawaken to our spiritual divine nature so that we can keep going up and up and up until we break through that consciousness into our permanent eternal union with the divine, our awareness of it, our awakening. This Halloween, promise me you'll have fun. Laugh at your fears. Allow the joy of laughter to lift you up above the earth consciousness. And if you need a little help, why did the ghost go into the bar? For the booze. Why didn't the skeleton dance at the party? He had no body to dance with. What do you call a fat pumpkin? A plumpkin. I'll say boo together. Let's take the energy of that joy, love, and laughter into prayer and just allow it to lift our spirits. It's all about lifting your spirit in whatever way brings you to that place of joy, that lighter energy that is above the pull of where the earth is trying to take us, above the negativity, above the fear, above the stress. We just stay in that love and that peace and that joy. I am divine by nature. Together, I am divine by nature. I release all fear. Together, I release all fear. And I rise above the earth negativity. Together, I rise above the earth negativity. And I live in grace and ease and joy. Together, I live in grace and ease and joy. Thank you, God, and so it is. Amen.